Welcome to Code with Kurt, the channel that brings you the latest Google Sheets and Google Apps Script videos. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a project I've been working on called TimeTracker. And what this does is it keeps track of the clock in and clock outs for a specific name, or I pointed out as an employee on this sheet. And it also keeps track on a Google Sheet of who clocked in, clocked out, the hours, keeps track of hours, and then gives you a total hours of all the clock in and clock out. So I can quickly demonstrate this by going over to my web app here. I'm going to select a name, Steve Smith. I'm going to clock him in. I'm going to select another name, Jim Will, clock in. And it gives a message down here, clocked in, gives the date and time down to the second. Rose Jackson, I'm going to clock her in. And Jill. So I got 4 people clocked in. We go over our sheet. You'll see everybody clocked in. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll clock them out. There's not going to be much time here for hours, but short duration. So we'll go back to Steve. Say I want to clock him in again. I'm going to get an error warning. Says he needs to clock out before he clocks back in. So I'm going to go clock him out. Changes the message, says clocked out at a certain time. I'll just go down here. Jack Smith says he needs to clock in first. So I'm going to go to the next one, clock out. Jim Will clocked out. I'm going to have to clock out Rose Jackson. And then I'm going to go out and clock out Jill Washington. So I'll go over my Google Sheets. Here it filled it all out, put the clocked out time, the hours, and then keeps track of a total here. So I'll go through a step-by-step process of how I built this web app and how I use Google Apps Script and an HTML file to put this together. If you're new to this channel, subscribe to catch my latest videos. Let's get started with this video. Here I am on my Google spreadsheet. I got it named TimeTracker Web App. I got 2 sheets. One is named Main and one is named Employees. And on my employees, I have a header record of name, and then I just have 5 names listed below here. And you can add as many names you want, but right here I just have 5 for my example. I'm going to go back over to my main sheet, and all I have here is these 4 header records. First one's named name, in, out, and hours. I have a skipped column here, column E, and then on F and G I have name and total hours. And that is it. That is just data here, no formulas, nothing. So basically I am populating this sheet from my web app. So next I'll go to my Google Apps Script. I'll go to Script Editor. I'm going to name it TimeTracker Web App. Hit OK. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy in my Google Apps Script code. There I have it copied. I'm going to hit Save. Next, I'm going to go and create my HTML file. It's going to ask me to put the name, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it TimeTracker, which is the same name that I have up here as this do-get, because this is the name of the file of the HTML that I'm opening when I start my web app. So I named it TimeTracker, just exactly the same as I have it up here. Hit OK. I get my file. Here, next I'm going to copy in my HTML code. So I have that copied. I'm going to hit Save. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post both of these sections of code below the video in the comments section. I'm going to paste HTML, JavaScript along with the Google Apps Script. So you can go ahead and copy these, paste these in as well. I'm going to briefly go through these, kind of just go through the flow of this so you have a little understanding of how this works and how this all comes together. I'm going to start with the Google Apps Script. I'm going to cover this first function. This is a standard Google Apps Script function called doGet. What this does is you need this to start up the web app. When you hit publish, when you hit deploy web app, you need this doGet in here. And really what I'm doing is I'm returning the HTML page. So it says create HTML output from file, time tracker. Time tracker is the name of this file. So this is what renders. It comes up when you publish. So you're viewing this. So next I'll go to my HTML page. I'm going to scroll. I got my, these are my libraries here. We'll just go through these. My first one is my, well, these is kind of two lines here. My first one is my Bootstrap CSS file, and that can be found on the Bootstrap website. And I just go down here. It says Bootstrap CDN, and I copy this link here, CSS only. I'm not doing the JavaScript. I get that from somewhere else, although you could probably copy this here as well. But for this one, I'm just copying this one. That's where I got that from. Go back to my HTML file. The next statement is my JavaScript, or not my JavaScript, my jQuery library. Where I found this is on the Google site called developersgoogle.com, hosted libraries, and I get the jQuery right here, and this is where I get it right here, this script right here. So that's copied in there. So now I got my Bootstrap library, my jQuery library that allows me to do jQuery commands as well as Bootstrap CSS. So next is my own JavaScript code, which is my script tags right here. All the way down here is where it ends. I'm going to go to my HTML code, which is very basic stuff. I got a header record as time tracker. I got a form row, which my first row will be employee, and my select statement is right here. This is where I select my employee. The next thing I have is my buttons, my clock in and clock out button right here, which they have on clicks on them, calling JavaScript functions. And then the last thing I got is my message. This lets me know who clocked in, who clocked out, gives that time reference after you click the button. So that's kind of the setup. This is what the visual you'll see on the screen. So how this starts though is from this first JavaScript function up here, this document ready. So when this is called is when the whole screen is brought up, then it calls this document ready jQuery function. This is calling is it get employees, and what is that doing? That is calling this function here, which extends. We got a full screen here. This function extends all the way down here, and then this function I'm calling a Google App Script function here, and the function I'm calling is get employees. This call starts up here and ends down here. Get employees. What does get employees do? Here it says my active spreadsheet. It grabs my employees sheet, sets the object there. And if we remember, my employee sheet has my employees on it. I'm getting the last row. I'm starting with row 2, column 1. I'm extending down the last row -1. The -1 is minus my header row. I don't want to take this with me. And then I am just one column. So gives me where I'm starting with, how many rows, and how many columns. So that should just bring over these 5 names. So that brings that back to my HTML code, where in turn it'll come back as an array called AR. And then from there I am getting the select object from this ID called employee. Employee is my HTML ID down here, identifying the select. It's grabbing that object. Scroll back up here. This console log, that's just for debugging. I could show you how that gets brought in when I'm running the web app. It's just for display purposes, not necessarily need it for this. The next thing I'm grabbing an option element. I'm setting the first one as blank. I'm adding that to my select. The next thing I'm doing is I'm going through my array that came back, which is my 5 employees. From there, again, I'm grabbing another option. And then with that option, I'm grabbing, or with the array, how this for each works is the item is the value, the index is the key of the array. I'm not really working with the index here, just the item. And then 0 is the first element in my array. So as I'm going through here, this would be 0. Yeah, each one is 0 because I'm working with just one column. If there was 2 things in this, it'd be 0 here and 1 over here, but just one column I'm working with. So everything will be 0. I'm setting my value and my text as the name, and then I'm appending it to my select statement. And that covers that function there. So that populates my select statement. So when I open up the web app, this is the first thing that it gets called. It populates my select statement. Now I'm ready to choose my name. So after I choose my name, I'm going to hit either clock in or clock out. So I go down to my button here. I got the clock in function and clock out. So I'll start with a clock in. My clock in function's here. I am clearing out my message that I'm displaying. That's my such and such name clocked in, such and such name clocked out. Clearing that out. I'm setting the value of employee, which is the name I selected. If that name does not equal nothing, then again I'm calling this Java app script function. And that is being called down here. I'm calling clocked in, and I'm passing my name in the function. So I go over here, I got my clocked in, employees coming in here, setting my active sheet, setting my object for main. I'm setting my active spreadsheet, setting my object to main, and then I'm getting the last row for main. So I'm trying to find the last record. I'm defining some return variables. I'm going to return back what I find, either an error or success. So I'm returning back a date. I'm returning back what kind of error. Right now I'm setting it to success. So it'll always be successful unless I override that. And my return array is I'm declaring that here. Here I'm starting at row 2, going last row. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the employee name and I am looking it up and I'm seeing if there's any names in there that has a clocked out of null. So I'm looking for names through here where the out is blank. That means that's telling me that someone's already clocked in and I'm doing a clocked in action. So what I want to do for that is I want to spit out an error saying that you need to clock out before clocking in, just to kind of make sure somebody knows that they're not clocking in twice. So there I'm declaring my error. I am pushing my array back, pushing the error into my array with a return date. I don't have any return date. I set that to blank. This is just an error output and the employee that I'm doing, returning it back far, and then I'm hitting a return array. And that would be the end if I found a clocked in record that already existed. But if I don't, then what I'm doing is I'm setting a date, getting my date ready. I'm setting that to my return date because I'm going to return that date back to the user for display. So, and I'm calling this small little function called getDate, which that takes the date I'm passing in and breaks it all the way down to a format that I want, which is the day, month, year, hour, minute, second, AM, PM. So this thing returns that back to the way I want to see it on the screen right here. From there, I'm populating my employee in the first column, and in the second column, I'm setting my new date here. So I got my name, clocked in date. Those are the two records I'm setting. And in here, I'm just doing an alignment and a font size of 12 for both of these as well. And then after that, I'm pushing my error, which is success since I didn't have to alter it. My return date back. It gives me the date that I'm actually clocked in and the employee returning it back. So over here, I got a couple situations. So I'm coming back with this array, small little array. Just has the success, a date, and the employee. Three things on my array. So again, this console log is for debugging. I'm doing a for each item and index. I'm really looking into the item here. So if item, my error is success, since I set it to success earlier, then I'm going to say the person is clocked in. So again, if it's success, my employee is 2, it's clocked in at, and then the time, the return date. And then from there, I'm setting that to my message down below. And I'm setting a class name, and this is some Bootstrap here, as just a plain regular box, nothing with the alertness or warning. So again, that message box is down here with my ID. I'm setting it there, and I'm setting the class to it. So if the person is already clocked in, well then I'm putting the employee and the error. I'm adding the error here, again setting that message to the message and giving a warning message, type message, changing the class to that box to warning. Gives it a more reddish look, more running. So that is in the clocked in function here. That covers everything here. And then lastly, if they click the clocked out function right here, which starts here and ends all the way down here. And again, I'm clearing out my message. I'm getting my employee value. If my employee value is not equal to nothing, then I'm calling my Google Apps Script function of clock out with employee. I'll go back over here. Clocked out employee, I'm setting the active spreadsheet. I'm setting my main sheet. I'm setting the last row of the main sheet. I got a record found variable of false, and I'm setting some of my return data. So my new date is, I'm setting the current date here. I am calling again my function of getDate to putting it in a nice string format so I can return back what was clicked. Setting my error to success. And this will stay success until I find an error and my return array. Again, I'm going to row 2, last row, looking to see if I can find my employee that has a blank clock out. And if I find the clock out, then I'm setting my clocked out date here. And then I'm figuring my hours here, the difference between clocked in and clocked out, and I'm dividing it of a calculation that gets me to hours. And then from there, I am setting the format of my hours here. So once I get the total time, I'm setting the total time, giving a fixed 2-digit value and formatting it to hours, giving it a number format, shifting it to the left, and giving it a font size of 12. And also saying I found a record. So if I didn't find a record, well then I didn't find an actual clocked out record for them, or just a clocked in record without being clocked out. So then I acknowledge a error of need to clock in first. Again, I'm not passing a date because there's no action here in employee, so this is my error returning that. Again, if there was, this is when there wasn't a record found. If there was, it keeps going, calls this total hours function. What this total hours function does, again, it declares the spreadsheet, declares the main sheet, gets the last row. So I'm declaring my totals array here. And the next thing I'm doing is I'm going through my records here, I'm going and grabbing the name and the hours because I'm going to be totaling them up over here. So I'm grabbing each name and hour. Then I have my totals array here, which I'll be going through here. So the first time I come through, my totals array is not going to have anything in it. So it's actually going to hit this down here where it says found record equal false, rates equal nothing. So again, I'm looking for a rate because I'm going to be adding it, and that's going to push my first record in for this name. The next time it goes through, if it finds the name in here, it's going to adjust the record by adding it to the total and say true, so it doesn't have to add that record again. That way I have one name with the total hours on my spreadsheet. So after I do this, I got my array populated. The next thing I do is I'm going to clear my range out, which is from F5 to G all the way down to 1,000, and then from there I'm going to go cycle through my array with a for loop and populate the name and the total hours right here. And then I go back up here, so it does the totaling here. I kind of just added it to the clocked out to do the total, and then after that it's going to return back my error. Again, this will be the successful record where my error equals success. I got a date employee. I'm returning back over here. Again, if it equals success, then I'm going to say this employee, which is in my two spots, clocked out at and my date here. Posting that message to my HTML tag and then giving it the class of just the primary look, which is I believe the bluish box look. And then if I have an error, then I'm reporting that my employee, displaying the error here, concatenate these two things together, putting that in my message, and then I'm giving more the warnings box, which is the reddish type output. So that completes that function there, and that is, I believe, everything with my Google script calls here and my HTML. Again, I'll post this code up so you can copy and paste it. Next, I want to go and publish. Go deploy web app. It's the first time I'm doing it. You could put anything name here. I'm just going to hit new. I'm going to execute as me and only myself. So I'm going to hit deploy. I'm going to go through permissions. I click my name. Advanced, TimeTracker web app save, allow. Here I got my URL, is my executable that's the one I can share with people. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to test it out with my latest code. This will give me the dev link. That way it's just easier to do. It'll pop up. And here I got my time tracker, my employee list where I can just select, clock in, and displays it over here on my Google Sheet right here. Again, some things to show you. I can go over here, more tools, developer tools, and from here you can just see my console log, the ones that I said I used for debugging, which are found here. This is giving my employees list. You can view your employees list, that array. And I had another one on my clocked in here, so you could see those over here. This is my employees list, the array coming through. Here's what comes back on a clocked in. So it's the success, the date, and Jack Smith. So those are some nice tools to have just to debug your web app as well. So I can hit clocked out here. Person is now clocked out right there, and then totaling up over there. Another thing to point out is if I make any changes to this, to the time tracker Code.gs, and you want to see your changes, you can go up to publish, deploy web app. You can click here, the latest code. This will be like to test it out, but if you need another what I would say more production or one you're going to hand out to people to use, then you have to rev it up. Hit new here, give it a name. Again, hit update. It'll give you a new URL to your updated, which you updated your code with. So again, for most test purposing, I always hit latest code. That way I don't have to go through revisioning my code all the time. So that concludes this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it below the video. Until next time.